Hey Reefers, welcome back. Okay, so today we're going to look at a technique of drilling glass. Okay, so basically what we want obviously is our piece of glass that we want to drill. This method would be cutting it down flat on a surface with the single pane of glass. Everything here can be applied to drilling through a side wall or a back of an aquarium with the same techniques. Just bear in mind when you are drilling through a side panel or a back panel vertically, just not to apply too much pressure, and when you get close to the end of the hole, just back off on your pressure and just let the actual hole saw do the work. Okay, so what we're going to need basically obviously is the sheet of glass, a spray bottle, as this has to stay wet while doing it, a sponge for a technique I'll show you just now, a piece of plastic that's easy to cut up to make a template as we want our holes to be equal, some tape to do for marking, and some tape to hold down the template while we're sawing, a ruler, a measuring tape, cutting knife, and a permanent marker. Okay, so basically what we want to do is find center of the glass. Well, for example, what we're doing here is this is going to be the base of a small aquarium. This is going to be the overflow over here. The overflow is going to be 100 by 200, and I'm drilling 3 holes. 2 for your overflow to go down to your sump, and 1 for a return. The reason we're doing 2 is 1 will be your primary, and the second one will be set a little bit higher than the other one, just in case anything has to get blocked up in there, and then it's an emergency overflow, so you don't get a sump running dry or a tank overflowing if your sump isn't set up correctly. Okay, so let's get started. Okay, so basically what we want to do is find center of this piece of glass, which is going to be, it's 550, so 27, so 275 is center. Okay. Okay, so this is going to be a floating base. What that means is your glass, your front panel, your back panel, and your side panels will overlap the base. They won't be made on the base. Okay, this gives it a nice seamless sort of look on the base, and it does look a bit better. It's a benefit to bigger aquariums and smaller aquariums. The only benefit it has to smaller aquariums, it just looks a little bit neater. So what I'm trying to get at that point is your space here. You don't have to worry about the glass going on top. Remember, if I'm making it 100 by 200, if I'm using a piece of glass that's going onto the base, you want to take into account of that measurement. So if you're using, for example, this is a 10 mil base, if I was to use 10 mil, I would have to go 110 to make my box, giving me space for that piece of glass, and then drilling my holes. Okay, because you can't see the mark so well, I've just marked it there so I know where to stick the tape, and I'm going to stick the tape right on top of that to give me my center, and I'm going to mark it once again. And then also you guys should be able to see that a bit more clearer, and that's my center of my base. Okay, so like I said, we don't have to worry about the glass going on here because the glass is going to go up against the base there as a floating bottom. So I'm going to make my 100 mil mark right over there. Okay, so from here I'm going to be going 200 box, so I'll take a measurement from there to there, give me 100 mils, from there to there, and the same on the other side. I'll do it like that, without having to rub that off the glass. And then, yeah, that's right, there to there. Okay, so I'm going to do the same here. So obviously I'm doing double the work, but just so you guys can see it better. But what I'll do here is I'll put that right up against those lines so I don't have to mark it again. Okay, so that edge of that line is my 100 away from there. Okay, and I'm going to do the same on this side. Same on this side. See, I can't even see the markings. There's my mark there, and there's my mark there. Okay. So one more measurement, one more mark. I'm going to mark 100 mils from there, and 100 mils from there. And once again, I'm going to put my mark on the line so I don't have to make another mark. And there we go. So this square over here is going to be my overflow, and this is where my pipes are going to be, my holes are going to be drilled in for my plumbing. Okay, so then we're going to come to this piece over here, which is almost 200 as it is. Okay, so it's a little bit skew there, so I'll use that as a reference. Okay, so let's go. Wait. Okay, so now that's just marking out my template, and I'm going to cut this. The nice thing, what I'm using here, I'm using Corex, so it's sort of, if it's in between the lines, it follows the lines very nicely. And I'll just score that piece over there. If you're not using Corex as your template material, then just use a ruler to cut it, it'll be easier. And that's quite funny that is pretty much perfect. Okay, so once again, what we're going to do here is we're going to measure for our 3 holes that we're going to do, and the first one is going to be dead center, which is this ruler has a 1:2 scale and a 1 scale, so I had it on the 1:2 scale, but that was pretty much right anyway, because I put it on the 50, and so it's meant to be on the 100. Okay, and then these ones here, I'm going to go a little bit over to the side over there, because it gives you space for that nut for the tank fitting. And then, so instead of it being 50 there, I've made it 60, and this side's going to be 60 here. Okay, so that's there. Let's do our center mark, and our center mark. Okay, so what I'm going to do here, just for reference, for the saw blade, for the hole saw, I'm going to make a mark on the size of the saw, so I know where the saw needs to line up. Okay, so whatever size the saw is the size you're going to put on there. So this is a 30 mil, so that is 30 mils. Just makes it easier when I'm trying to line up the saw blade and cut this out for the template. That's what this is going to help. This is going to be a massive help when you're actually doing the job, because it will prevent this blade from running wild. Okay, so we're going to drill this, but I'm going to add that underneath it so I don't scratch the glass. Okay. Normally I would do this on a workbench and a bit of block of wood or something, but I don't have that right now, and that will work perfectly fine. So what we want to do is line it up there and give it a cut. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold it above the plastic at first, get some revs going on the saw, and then press it down. It'll prevent it from running around too much in the beginning, so I can add the pressure as I go. Same on this one, just repeats. Same on this one. So now what we need to do is line that up with our marking on the masking tape. Once we're happy with that, we're going to take some box tape and stick it down. Okay, so I'm going to put that on there like so. Let's go with that one first. That's got the square end. Okay, so now we have that nicely fastened to the glass. We have a template, and that is what we're going to follow. Okay, so another technique that I've found is you take a dish sponge or any form of sponge, and you take your hole saw and you cut a hole. Let me do this through your sponge. And you put that inside there, give it a good wet before you start, so that the water gets soaked up nicely by the sponge. And then we're going to start with the center hole, spray some water into that hole, and then we can start the process. Okay, so here, we don't want to put a large amount of pressure while drilling, okay? Your speed, so it's nice to have a variable speed drill. It will make life a bit easier, but you don't have to go very slowly, okay? As long as this glass stays wet. Most importantly, high revs are okay, but not a lot of pressure. So basically all I'm doing is resting my hand on top of this. I'm not pushing down. The drill has a little shock absorber. All I'm doing is just allowing that shock absorber to go down. I'm not pushing any more than that. I'm just resting my hand on top of it. And what I normally do is I'll put one arm on a surface, the other hand holding the drill to support it as level as possible. It's difficult to do this 100% level, but you want to try and get it as level as possible. And then you start. Okay, so let's just add a little bit more water there. Remember, the sponge is also soaking up water, keeping it nice and wet. And we get it going slowly. And you just hold it there while it goes. If you need to stop and add more water, go for it. And there we go. Our first piece of glass done. Just got to get that piece of glass out. It's not always so hard to get out. This one's obviously giving me a little bit of trouble. Okay, so there's our first piece. Let's get started on our next one. There we go. There's our second piece done. Okay, so I've got a timer here, and it shouldn't take you longer than about 2 minutes to go through a piece of 10mm glass. If it's taking you longer than that, you can apply a little bit more pressure. Just remember, it is easier to drill thicker glass than it is to drill thinner glass. The pressure applied on thinner glass needs to be lighter. so not more than your hand pressure. A thicker glass, you can put a little bit more weight on it. So the investment in a hole saw, if you're going to be drilling holes regularly, is a good investment to have. So let's go for the last hole. There we go. Last hole done. Okay, so what we don't want to happen, and why we need to keep the area we're drilling wet, is we don't want the glass, sorry, let me put this down, we don't want the glass to get hot. If the glass gets hot, it will cause expansion, and then if you have to wet it again, or even if not, the expansion alone is enough to crack the glass. Okay, so keeping it wet keeps the hole saw lubricated, and it keeps it cool. So the diamond hole saw works in the same concept as the Griffin bandsaw that I used for fragging coral. Okay, so let's have a look at this. Let's move all this off the glass. And there we have it, 3 nicely drilled holes. Now all you need to do is, if you find any edges that are sharp or that, just go over it with a bit of sandpaper and clean it up, and you can even burr that edge a little bit to give it a nice finish on both sides as well. And then it's ready. All you need to do is put your tank fittings into there, and there's it. You got a drain. Obviously build the box around it and build the actual aquarium. It is nerve-wracking the first time you do it. I remember the first time I did it, it was very scary. Because you think, this is my fish tank. If I break it, there's going to be no more fish tank, or there's a big job trying to clean it up. But it's not that hard. Just take it slow. See you in our next video. Happy reefing.